How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast, and welcome to the finale of every single Halloween film ranked, the entire series ranked from worst to first. This is part 3, the finale of the trilogy, the Halloween ends of this little series, if you will. And we're going to get right to it, but first I just want to say, if you guys haven't seen part 1 and part 2 of this series yet, you got to make sure you go ahead and check that one out, and also make sure you check out our original ranking of the series back from 2020. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoy this episode of the show. I hope you enjoy the final rankings of the Halloween franchise. This is going to be films 4 all the way up until number 1, the very best film in our opinions. So I hope you enjoy the show. If you guys are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you are listening to the show, make sure you're leaving me a rating, a review, subscribing to the show, spreading the good word about Buddy's House of Horror, letting all your friends, family members, fellow horror fanatics know about the premier podcast in the horror sphere, the greatest horror podcast of all time, Buddy's House of Horror podcast. So with that said, we're going to get to our top 4 of the Halloween series. Again, I just want to say thank you if you've listened to parts 1 and 2 already and are leading into part 3. Again, you can start with part 3 if you want, if you just want to see what the greatest films in the franchise are. But again, for those of you that have checked out the entire 2.5 hours approximately preceding this and then are going to listen to the third hour, I appreciate all the support so far. So with that said, we are going to get right to the show. So now it is time to get spooky. We're on to your 4, and I hope to fucking Christ that you finally talk about Halloween Ends and you don't have Halloween 3 below Halloween Ends, because I know you love Halloween 3.
We're at Halloween Ends for my number 4.
Thank God. Thank
I
God.
actually watched.
Holy shit! Thank
I
God.
actually watched Halloween Ends this morning. If I'm going to be honest, I love Halloween Ends. And you can say whatever you want after this, but Halloween Ends, and I used this in the prior podcast, and you brought it up in this, which I appreciate that you did. Halloween 2, Rob Zombies is like the anti-Halloween Halloween. To me, the biggest problem with Halloween Ends, and I can fully admit it, is the fact that it's called Halloween Ends. And I think I tried to say this in the podcast that we did, but Jared and you were just screaming over me so much. It was so defeating. And so, I actually, when we left that podcast, I never wanted to do another podcast again in my entire life. I was completely done. I was like, I've never heard people scream and tell me that I was just wrong about everything I was feeling and why. And I was trying to give valid reasons or try to give reasons for discussion. And they were so shot down. I was like, I don't ever want to do a podcast again. I really did. I left that. And we did take a break after that. But I love doing podcasts with you, buddy. We've been doing this now for years, and I greatly appreciate it. As much as I disagree, and I do, with your ranking. You gave Halloween Ends a 0.5 star on Letterboxd. I'm sorry, man. It's not a 0.5 star film. And just the way that it's shot, the way there's just... Is it safe to say that out of all the franchises we've done, is Halloween your favorite?
Yes.
That's what I thought. If you look at Buddy's Letterboxd top 4, what's one of the films that's in there, buddy?
Oh, I got my homepage. Oh, Halloween's number 1. My favorite film of all time.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for number 1 on this list. But
I was trying to call you out, but not in that way. So, as someone who has that as their favorite film, and is their favorite in the franchise, I get it, man. I get it. But for me, someone who has watched 12 other Halloween films before this, who has seen all the ups and downs of the franchise, and it's something that you and Jared, mostly Jared, brought up. Well, just to have Laurie and Michael fight again. Bro, I've seen Michael and Laurie fight or be in some sort of entanglement so many fucking goddamn times to the point where it's not interesting to me anymore as a person. And I don't know, and I brought this up 3 times on this podcast so far. I don't know what the fuck they could outdo after the load they blew in Halloween 2018. I'm just serious. Like, I have no fucking, I don't know. You know what I mean? She had a whole fucking Saw trap house basically to do with them. I don't know what they could have done. I'm sure there were some things, but I like when Halloween Ends starts, the music that you don't like and the way the titles are, that it tells you immediately this is just going to be whatever the fuck they want it to be. And
I don't like there's a soundtrack in the film, period.
Okay.
This is the only film that I'm aware of that has, like, actual songs within the film.
Rob Zombie's does.
Well, she plays Love Hurts, which I'll never fucking think of that. But anyways, go ahead.
But to me, if the biggest problem, like I said, that this film is called Halloween Ends. If this would have just been called Haddonfield or been the middle, I think the order, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, I'm repeating myself again, but the order is all out of fucking whack for this series. If they would have made Halloween 2018 and then taken the ending off, somehow in the middle, introduced Corey in some small parts, taken this film, made it the middle film, and then taking Kills and then added the actual true ending of Halloween 2018 with Kills, and still had the ending that Kills has, but it not be the finale. So so Kills would have just, or that whatever the final would have
Kills would have been a 10-star masterpiece.
Would have been like, yeah, it would have been phenomenal. The problem is, I think that Ends was the film that they pitched to Universal, and they fucking and Malik Akkad, and they told them fucking no. And I think after they made the Akkads in Universal $250,000 fucking dollars, and then all the DVD Blu-ray sales, they're like, oh yeah, now you can make what you want to make. I think it's another thing of studio interference and all the bullshit. I'm going to go through the bullet points quick of why I love Ends. And it's funny, Ends on my Letterboxd, I have a couple people you don't know, but they've given it 5 stars and have fucking essays on why they think it's 5 stars. And I have you at a half star. I have the most divisive scores through, and I respect that. I'm just going to go through quickly. I like, as someone who grew up in a small town, you did as well.
The same small town.
The same small town. I was born in Cleveland, but I grew up in Beulah. I like the tale of Corey, and I like of how much it feels like fate is involved in this film. Here's the problem. I understand what you wanted and maybe what others wanted out of a Halloween film. I got a film that probably shouldn't have been called Halloween. If it would have been called Haddonfield and been a film in the Halloween universe, that would have been fine. So I understand. I get it. But
if it was that, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. The problem with it is, for me, it is Halloween Ends. This is how it ends. Like you said, if this was some of the first elements of this, or maybe this stuff's going on with Corey, then Michael Myers escapes, they team up somehow, that would have been a good first film. But it's not the first film.
I know.
And that's, I don't know. I'm glad that you like it. I'm glad that you enjoy it.
I like how they talk about, I like the ways that they talk about evil and how it's infected the town in this. I like the way, and they do talk about it in Kills to a degree, but Kills is much more like punching him in the face with it, with all the running and all this. This is much more like the day-to-day of like how the tragedy of Michael Myers and the murders and stuff have really started to infect the town. So it almost takes what I like about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and expands upon that over the course of a couple years. So I like the beginning where I'd like to just say I like the actor that plays Corey. I like Corey. He seems believable. He seems like people I've known. So I think right off the bat, I think it draws me in. So, I mean, again, maybe I have a bias, but that's okay. I'm the one fucking watching it if I enjoy it. I like that Haddonfield has like a curse over it and they talk. I love all the scenes with Laurie where Laurie's like, this is what got me to this point in regards to like she sees like murders happening and people's suicides and how there is this kind of black curse over Haddonfield. And she's like, you know what? I am going to try to move on with my life. It's been a couple years. Now, granted, this is 4 years later, but in the flashback, she says it's been a couple years. Myers disappeared. He's not fucking back. I am going to try to move on with my life because at this point, what's the fucking worst that can happen? I'm in my 60s. I can just get fucking killed and that, whatever. So I like how Haddonfield looks. It looks very, very Midwest. I like the push and pull of Corey's character where there are moments where he's like, he's not an evil person. He has that in him, just like we all have good and evil in him. He wants to fight back. He's like, I'm not, like, he's trying to convince the town that he's not this fucking dude, but they will not see him any other way. The biggest problem, I think, it's called Halloween Ends. But I love the fucking character arc of Corey. And I actually like the character arc of Allison. I like that it is more of their show than it is Laurie. Laurie's just kind of like a narrator, like woven through the background. I know that's not what you want. I know that's not what people want from Halloween. But I love that this film exists. I love that this film is a weird, romantic, tragic thriller, and it has the highs and lows. And as I watch the film, like, there's a lot of foreshadowing and all stuff. Like, there's a lot of just stuff that just constantly they're paying attention to each scene, detail to detail to detail. That's okay if that's not what you wanted from Halloween, and I acknowledge it should have never been called Halloween Ends, should have never been the final film in the series. But I'm fucking thankful to exist because I love it. I honestly, if it wasn't for a few nitpicks, I wouldn't have rated any higher on this, but I would, like, star-wise, I would rate it higher. I mean, I took other notes. I mean, I just like the way, I like Corey and Allison's relationship a lot. I think if they weren't playing off each other in the way that they were, or if Corey didn't have her to play off of, I think it wouldn't have been as strong. I think a lot of the kills in this are great. I mean, all right, I'll acknowledge the Michael Myers stuff. He comes in partway through the film. Here's a problem with this and why I even want to rate this film higher. Not on my list, but star-wise, and I can't. The biggest thing with David Gordon Green's films is they don't solidify, is this a man? Is this supernatural? Like, they go back and forth on trying to decide, like, what it is. When I watched this trilogy all the way through, this is a man where he's not maybe a ghost or whatever, but this is a man with extraordinary just resilience capabilities. I mean, to the point where he does feel inhuman, right? Am I right? Like,
not in this one.
I mean, at the end, he still gets his wrist slit. He gets stabbed, and he basically gets crucified on a table and a fridge dumped on him. And he's a 70-year-old man. Like, I'm sorry. He's missing the two fingers. I mean, they keep the continuity with that. Stuff that, I'm sorry, if I saw a 70-year-old man, that they wouldn't be doing that kind of fucking stuff.
But at age 68, or 2 years prior, he's the GOAT.
I get it. I get that. That's another thing why I have such a hard... I get it. But I don't know. There's so many... Like, I watched it again today, and I'm just like... I just love how fucking different this film is. And it hits all these different notes for me where it's almost like an alternate universe Halloween film. And I'm really fucking glad it exists because it is my favorite in the trilogy. And I would definitely prefer to watch this over almost any fucking sequel any day of the week. And today, watching it again, solidified it because I just love the way it looks. I don't know. I love this film. It's cool that we have completely different takes on it, but I fucking love it, man. So anyways, if you got anything else to say about it, go ahead.
Well, I guess just kind of like I said, like, we talk all these hypotheticals, like, they should have done this, or they would have introduced this, or they could have done this. And that's not what they did. Like, that's the only thing for me, and, like, I don't necessarily care as much about the Michael and Laurie fight because, again, we've seen that. The thing that I do care about is how they made Michael like an absolute joke in this. He has his moments at his end, like you said, with the wrists and all that, but he gets his ass kicked by 20-year-old Corey in the sewers when he fucking murdered 1,000 people the year prior.
It technically was 3 years prior.
Well, however many years. I don't know. That's my whole thing, is when you're ending the trilogy, like you said, had it been a side story that leads into a new trilogy, or if it was at the beginning film where they introduced Corey earlier, taking it within the context of the trilogy is why I don't really like it. If it was a standalone film, then maybe it wouldn't be a half star.
I just don't think it's a half-star film in general, because I've watched some half-star films and they don't, even taking my bias of enjoying it away, they don't look and are shot like this.
I understand this isn't Manos: The Hands of Fate. Okay. I understand.
This isn't the I remake with Jessica Alba or Kidnap with Halle Berry. But anyways, I famously hate both of those films. Fuck those films forever. Halle Berry went into a post office, and when she ran out of fucking gasoline, it's probably one of the stupidest fucking things I have ever seen in any film that's ever existed. Anyways.
I mean, everything that I've said before. I mean, we've compared this to Star Wars a lot during this. So imagine you've got A New Hope, you've got Empire Strikes Back, Han Solo is frozen in carbonite, Luke, I am your father, hand chopped off screaming. You can't fucking wait for what's happening in this next film. Return of the Jedi comes. They introduce a new character named Jimmy the Jawa, or just something ridiculous. The whole fucking movie's about him. Han Solo just kind of disappears. Darth Vader isn't a threat anymore at all. And Luke and Darth Vader fight for 30 seconds. The Emperor's nowhere to be found, and then that's your film. Like, that's kind of like if you're gonna compare it to something like that, would be like if
it's a little different, but I understand. I get it, and I also respect that you hold the whole, like, the character, the mythos, everything on a higher thing with me. Where I'm ready to see something different. It's fine. I mean, I think it's cool that you like kills. It's funny because if we talked about Jared earlier in the podcast. I would say that Jared's favorite of the trilogy is probably 2018.
All three of us have a different favorite.
I would have, yeah, but you had 2018 higher than Kills, didn't you?
Oh, we haven't talked about
shit.
Kills yet, brother.
Okay, then good, because I thought Kills was okay. Man, this is good. We're getting good, but it's funny. But okay, look, that's awesome. That's the best part about the fandom for this series is we get to a point where we're coming to half a fucking century of Michael Myers. We all want different things. It's great. I respect it. I fucking love Halloween Ends. I'm glad there's some fucking Halloween Ends fans out there. If you don't like it, I fucking get it. But I'm gonna watch it. I have it on Blu-ray. I have all of them on it. I own all of them on physical media now, so it's not like, and some of them on multiple formats, but
that's the only one I don't own on physical media.
I know you're
yet.
never.
Well, I want to if they finally like put out like a nice like set or something, which they probably will soon.
They had the again, and I've been ordering them from them recently. I actually got a package from them today, honestly. So thank you, Gov.com. Gruv, whatever. It's not government.com. Is owned by Universal, but they have basically it's like, and it's weird because they have Universal, but they also have Warner Brothers, all this stuff. It's basically a massive warehouse for a handful of the studio's Blu-rays and DVDs. They, the other week, had a Blumhouse weekend deal. They do weekend deals, and once in a while I order from them. They had the Blumhouse, the deal. It was the Halloween trilogy, the new ones, $20 for the Blu-ray triple set. You should have fucking got that, cat. It would have been the cheapest thing you could have done. I mean, 20 for all. Do you have the first two on Blu-ray?
I have the first two on 4K Blu-ray.
Oh wow, okay.
But the thing is like a lot of the earlier ones that I haven't upgraded yet.
Okay.
So like my Halloween 1 through 5, well 1 through 6 actually, are all on just straight DVD.
I know a guy who might be getting rid of his set, which was limited.
The one that Jared has? The Blu-ray set?
Yeah. Because I might be able to get it for you for super fucking cheap. So I'm actually going to, when this podcast ends, or in the next day, I'm going to work on that for you. So, anyways, continue.
Interesting. What were we talking about?
Just getting it physical media.
I'm going to get it on physical media regardless because I am a fan of the franchise. I need all of them on physical media, but I do not have it yet.
One thing I will say, I did like the actor, and I thought he did a good job in that role. I'm excited because he is in the next Osgood Perkins film, the one that comes out.
I saw that.
The monkey. Yeah, I'm very excited. I think the beginning of 2025 is going to hit pretty hard, and as far as like film wise, like Wolfman, the monkey. I mean, I think there's some good.
I'm just excited for horror in the next foreseeable future. I mean, obviously, did you see the theater in Great Northern Malls doing the double feature of Terrifier 2 and 3?
So is Regal.
Okay,
but but the problem is it starts at 5 p.m. I can't get off work that early, so I mean, if you're you should do it if you can do it.
That's so fucking long, and I did see Terrifier 3 is only 2 hours and like 5 minutes.
The run time though, without previews, I think is 4.5 hours.
That's insane.
So if they do you're in a 5.
Like,
so you're 5 to 10. You might as well figure 5 to 10 probably. The initial reactions, I wasn't trying to look at reviews, but the initial reactions are, this is the fucking most gory film I've ever, like, so many people like, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen ever. Yeah. I've seen multiple people say it, because they premiered at Fantastic Fest the other day.
Yeah, so, I know some people who were there.
Yeah, so.
Like, I don't know, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And he did say Terrifier 4 is definitely happening. So we're not done yet, baby. We're not done yet.
Thank God.
That's my number 4.
So my number 4, this time, and the previous time, is Halloween 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Oh, wow.
I took essentially no notes about it. I love the intro, as we talked about.
God tier.
I love just the general aesthetic. I love the legend that they were building up with Michael Myers with this. Don't love what they did with Laurie's character. I think that, like, oh, she died in a car accident. Just sort of like a cop-out kind of thing. So, like, if there is, like, something to complain about, it would be that. But other than that, I mean, a lot of the things that you talked about, I mean, it pretty much, like, covers a lot of the things that I would have really said about this, too. I like he has to go to the store and get the same fucking mask.
Yeah.
It does retread a lot of the things that I like about the original film. So if you're gonna redo things, at least it's stuff that I think is cool. I do think that there is a big missed opportunity in this film where we could have done with a little bit more of the bandaged up Michael Myers.
I agree.
Because like when he kills the mechanic, he looks so fucking hard.
It's real hard. Yeah, I agree with that.
So there's definitely something more I think they could have done with that from that aspect. But 4 is another one where like there's really not a whole lot to complain about. There's not a lot to really say for me. Just a good, solid flick. I have a ton of nostalgia for it. Obviously, I would watch 4 constantly as a kid.
This was the one that was always on TV.
Yeah.
Like, this is the one that I think was, because for some reason there were rights issues when especially like I'm a couple years older than you, like rights issues when I was a kid. Halloween 1 wouldn't be on TV a lot. For some reason, I swear to God, Halloween 4 was on multiple stations constantly. I think this was the first Halloween I ever saw.
Yeah. I love Jamie's character in this.
Yeah.
It's always tough, like, finding good child actors. Danielle Harris does an amazing job in this.
Yes.
I don't know if she does better in this or if she does better in 5. But it's just kind of like a consistent performance throughout, which is why I'm kind of let down that she was not in 6.
Yes. Can we say that her performance actually in 8 or in both Rob Zombie films, she was very solid in those too. We're just going to compliment her throughout. I mean, which is also, it's funny because Malika Akkad, wasn't he a producer also on Six? So the fact that he was a
Probably.
producer on both the remakes, I wonder what that was like for her. Like, hey, see, you should have fucking cast me in this and paid me, you know?
I just really like her character a lot. I've seen a lot of, like, there's a lot of YouTube. I don't know if have seen a lot of this, but there's a big conversations online where Jamie Lloyd is actually the better character as opposed to Laurie Strode, and what she went through, like the psychological torment and stuff like that, is much worse than what Laurie had gone through. I mean, obviously in this, she has like the psychic link with Michael, and the fact that she's a kid. Like, Michael's going after Laurie as like a teenager, essentially an adult. Like, he's going after like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk online about how Jamie is the real champion of the Halloween franchise. I don't know if I would go that far.
I can get behind it to a degree, honestly, only because we probably see. It's hard because we go on these alternate paths with Laurie, these alternate versions of Laurie.
Because again, I mean, up until this point, Laurie has still just had that one shitty fucking night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to Jamie's years of torment and then in an asylum.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit more character evolution with Jamie's character. So I can get behind that. The Halloween series, to me, I've said it before, I'm very open to interpretation. There's so many different ways you can fucking go with the series, but I think most people have Halloween 4 in their top 5. I mean, it's pretty much, this is one you can like usually generally say, like, you put it on, most people are like, okay, this is good. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's not a lot of controversy.
Yeah, like I said, like this one, like, I like it a lot, but there's not as much to really get into, like, the finer, like, details of it. I will say, like, out of all of them, this is probably the one that I have the most, like, nostalgia for. Because, like, whenever I watch this film, I think of my childhood.
I like basically what I said. It was always on TV. It's probably the first one I saw. I think I can agree with that.
Because, like, I don't rewatch it as often as I do. Because Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, I watch pretty much every single year. So, like, it doesn't have, like, this nostalgic value to me in the same way because I'm watching it all the time. It's just, like, a part of my life. Like, Halloween 4, it feels like a much more, like, special occasion kind of watch. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I really dig it. So,
It's your number 4.
number 4.
So, we're ready to enter the top
We're
3.
ready to enter the top
We have
3.
gotten through 10 other fucking films. Thank fucking God. If you made it this far, I greatly appreciate you. Thank you. My number 3. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
My number 3 is Halloween from 1978.
Holy shit.
So I had to just drop that on there. So, in my honest to God rewatches for this, I want to say this right here. My top 3, all of them are like 5-star films to me personally. So it's you know, whatever. I'm not lessening the impact of Halloween, but
It's all personal preference, guys.
exactly. But as far as enjoyment, when I sat down and was completely honest with myself, when I watched the first 3, I was like, kind of got feel a little bit stronger about a couple other films in this franchise. But what can I say? It's the originator. It gave us the character that we've all come to know and love. A character that, for all intents and purposes, might fucking outlive us, as far as, like, there might be
guaranteed.
sequels,
Guaranteed.
you know, 50 years from now, if humanity still exists. He is an iconic form of just pure evil and madness. Before they tried to explain away all of his motives and his persona, he was just the shape. He was just simply the shape and scared a fucking generation. One of my friend's dads, no fucking joke, when I was a kid, told me I went and saw Halloween in theaters, and he goes, I had never seen anything like that, and I slept in bed with a shotgun for 2 weeks after that. I'll never forget him saying that. as a kid.
That's hard.
And I thought that was the hardest fucking thing. And it's
Can
true.
you imagine? Just us as like a generation, we never have, and I don't think we ever will have an experience like that. Like, we're so, like, I don't even want to say desensitized, but like, we've just seen it all. Like, there's never been a film that's come out that has had that much of an impact on pop culture, I feel.
Look about this, and this is a trifecta for me. And all three of these are in my top films of all time. The Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Halloween in the 70s. Think about those three films and what they did for horror and stuff going forward. No one had ever seen anything like any of that.
Yeah.
You know, horror went from being spooky castles and melodramatic whatever to being a fucking family of cannibals that will just eat you up and cut you up for no fucking reason because you stumbled on their property. Michael Myers, for God knows what, just killing teenagers, you know. Fucking Satan will possess your fucking 10-year-old daughter and she'll call you a fucking cunt and spew fucking green bile all over you. I mean, those three for me will always be three of my favorite films ever because they changed the course of film history. And I don't think almost anything that could ever come again would ever be as iconic as those three films. I'm spewing a little bit off that, but it can't be understated the magnitude of Halloween as we talk about it here.
We talk about it all the time, me and you. 70s, man. People sleep on the 70s.
They do.
You talked about my Letterboxd 4, like my 4 films on Letterboxd. 3 out of those 4 films are 70s films. Obsessed with the 70s.
I think, honestly, the older I get, too, I know a lot of people that like the 80s more. I think the 80s have a lot more feel-good moments, and people have a lot of nostalgia for it, but
the 70s were so much more important.
The problem is a lot of the people, the 70s films, a lot of them made you think, they made you feel. They weren't happy. A lot of those films, even the good endings, these people just barely survived or made it through. Or at the end of the film, they made you ask like larger questions about your faith, about other things you were comfortable with. Certain aspects that if you look at the 60s, it's just such a dramatic leap of as far as content and the questions they were asking and the way the culture was being pushed forward. There'll never be anything like it in cinema again, I think, personally. So I'm glad that you appreciate the 70s as much as you do because it's just...
Well, I'm glad you do, too, because we watch a lot of 70s shit together.
No
one else would ever watch this shit with me when we watch it all the time.
I've been on, especially lately, a big like 70s counterculture film kick. I mean, I just watched a film the other night, little sidebar as we're getting late I watched a film called The Wind Splitter the other night, which was from the writer of Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. It was one of the only films he's ever directed, and it has Tobe Hooper's only acting credit as a film.
That sounds like the hardest thing
I love it. We can watch it sometime. No, it's great. And it actually has it has the father from Texas Chainsaw in one of his only other roles.
Oh, that's tight.
You love it. It's about an actor coming back to his small town and them just basically trying to treat him like shit. And like him being just outcast from society and all these fucked up things that happen. 71 lately. I've been watching so much shit, like not intentionally. I'm like, put something on. I'm like, what's this from? 1971. 71 is hit as far as I would say lesser known films.
Yeah.
Like I'm realizing how crucial the early 70s was to filmmaking. But crazy to see Tobe Hooper basically as like a 20-year-old actor.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe I'll bring it up. We'll bring it up. That I would love. I just watched it. I'd love to rewatch it though. I actually gave it 3.5 on a first watch. A lot of 70s stuff I love, but it's in that 3 to 3.5. But this was solid watch. Maybe I'll bring it over sometime. We'll check it out.
3.5 is still a good score, dude.
Good score, man. But again, was that a shocker for you? I put Halloween at 3.
No, because I know how much you love Halloween 3.
I know, but even for me, I was like, wow, like you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, we'll talk about that more in a bit. What's your number 3?
My number 3. because you would think I was a crazy person if I were to have this at 1 or 2, but this is solidly at 3. Halloween Kills.
Wow.
The clear front runner for the best Halloween film of this modern era. I know there's things about it you don't like.
I'm here to listen.
It gives me everything that I want from a Halloween film. It has the trashiness that I love from Rob Zombie and the Thorn trilogy. It has Michael being an absolute fucking badass. It has callbacks to the Halloween films that, again, I grew up with, that I love. Again, Halloween 2018, it does its little fan servicey moments. I love the hospital stuff. Halloween 2, obviously, in my top 2 films. I love the backstory with Michael. I love that they tried to have deeper connections with that original film. Mm-hmm. Because obviously I love the original film a lot. We have not really explored, up until this point, because we're ignoring Halloween 2, we haven't explored what else has happened that night. We're only focused on Laurie's character. What is the rest of the town doing? What is Tommy Doyle's friends doing? What are the cops doing? How are they trying to get him? What is Loomis doing after they couldn't find him? Like, these are elements of that story that I don't feel like you're over-explaining or like trying to make sense of things that you don't need to make sense to. This is expanding the lore in a respectful way, I would say. But this is also where they kind of killed Halloween 2 being canon, because they have the whole thing at the house. But I guess you could explain, like I said, you could explain after that, oh yeah, they were actually brother and sister. Like, there were still ways you could get around it. But I love that aspect to it, that it kind of tried to bring it full circle, because obviously you have a new trilogy, you need to have new characters within that trilogy. I thought that was a way to connect, his name's escaping me right now, but the main cop, to have some sort of personal connection with Michael.
What's his face? Oh, god damn it. I just watched Ends today. I do like I like his character build up throughout this new trilogy. I just want to throw that out there. And I actually love the actor who plays him, a young version of him. He's
from the Mural and the Dying Girl or whatever.
Yes, which
Hawkins,
one of my favorites. Yes.
By Will Patton. I think he's just a good character. I will say in general for this David Gordon Green trilogy, they needed someone for that sheriff to do. The cowboy hat sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
They just dropped the ball with him.
They did, yeah.
I would have loved the final confrontation to be with him and Michael, and they're literally just punching each other in the face.
It's so hard. There's definitely some missed opportunities, obviously. Even though the scene in Kills, I will say, when like after like the fucking like riot in the hospital, which again I said I'm not a huge fan of. I just think I'm not a huge fan of the way, like, they could have done it in a different way that I would have enjoyed more. But him seeing there with his like stomped on cowboy hat, looking sad, and it just pans away is so random and just I do like that. Anyways,
some other elements of the film that I like. I mean, obviously, it's just entertaining. Like, I'm never bored when I watch it. It's another, like, every time I watch Halloween 2018, it gets a little worse. It loses its luster a little bit.
Yeah.
Every time I've watched Halloween Kills, I mean, this is only the 3rd time I've seen it, I've enjoyed it more every time that I've watched it. I love the music. I love what John Carpenter did with this. This is one of the first times, if not the first time, I mean, I don't have every soundtrack memorized in my head, but the Halloween theme feels epic in this. They do an orchestral remix of this. They have big choirs in this doing it behind the music. Obviously, I love the end credits music. My dudes and Ghost making the song for it. Clearly gets a little bonus point for that, as no barring on the effect of the film. But like, as I said, has elements from every iteration of the franchise that I like. The brutality that Rob Zombie does, it does imply some sort of cult thing or a higher meaning when Laurie's talking about every time he kills it gets stronger, calling back to Thorn trilogy stuff. I obviously said it takes place in the hospital. It takes place in 1978. It's a love letter to not only the trashy elements in Halloween, but trashy elements of a lot of the 80s slashers that I love too. Because, I mean, I love the 70s. I love 80s horror as well, obviously. I feel like this film is more of the love letter to the franchise that I love, more so than 2018. 2018 is more so like a love letter to the 78 film with some references thrown in. It's basically remaking the 78 film with some elements of H2O. This one, I feel like it's more so we're doing something within this universe, more so than it being stuck with being a requel kind of scenario. You were going to say something.
No. I think no. Continue.
Like the biggest thing for me is like I'm watching a Halloween movie for the most part for Michael Myers, and this film gives you some of the best Michael moments of all time. Obviously, has the scene at the beginning with the firefighters, has the scene at the end where he's literally murdering the entire town.
I want to say these are the parts that I like. So just
yes,
yes. As much as is where I put kills, I would say 50% of it like it a lot. And I said it earlier in the podcast. All of these films have things I like a lot in it. I like this. I wish this franchise in general wasn't so disjointed, but I still like this new trilogy a lot. For, again, comparing to Star Wars, I like all three of the new Star Wars sequels a lot. Things are a little jarring at first, and I wish that maybe they were a little more connected, but I appreciate the swings that this franchise and all three of these films have taken, and I'm honestly not sure after these swings with the upcoming television series or whatever they do, I'm not sure if they'll ever be given the freedom to take these swings again, to be honest. So I really appreciate what David Gordon Green did and try to do these, regardless of what the results were.
Like, again, I think it's, besides the original film and parts of Halloween 2, like, this is just the best that we've seen Michael, like, as a character. Like, when we talk about 2018, besides the fact that we're told this is Michael Myers, he's wearing the mask, like, he acts like Michael in the sense that he's walking around killing people or whatever. In this film, I feel like it is really calling back to the original 78 film, where he's staging the bodies. He's doing this and that. Like, I feel like they really nailed the essence and the character of what they were trying to do with this film. And it's never boring. I think it's hilarious. I know you hate the mob stuff, but I think it's hysterical. I can understand why people don't like it.
Okay.
Like I can fully acknowledge why people don't like it. But again, it shows, like how you talk about it ends, this sort of cloud that has been over the town, influencing them.
I like that we are the yin and yang of this, where you find one of the modern sequels that you love a lot, and I find another one regardless, because at least we don't have a nostalgia bias over this series. You know, I mean, honestly, you know, we're open-minded.
There's not a lot of a nostalgia bias when the film came out 3 years ago. It's my number 3 in the entire franchise.
Well, I put one that came out 2 years ago at number 4, so yeah.
I mean, there's not a ton to really like go and say about it like that we haven't already said. I like the stuff at the bar. I like the characters. I like how this girl is talking up how she knows how to use a gun. She's always keeping a gun on her, and then the one opportunity she has to use it, she's shaking all over the place, and she shoots herself in the face.
That's one of the best kills, though, in the entire series, when the door hits her and it just fucking... I mean, I would have loved to have been there, like, in a meeting room, and they were just going to do that. Everyone had to laugh. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's funny. That's good. Yeah, you know, I mean...
Again, the humor works in this.
He said he wanted to make a Michael Myers exploitation film, and I that's the best and the worst. He had 3 different visions of Michael Myers, and he did 3 different visions. It doesn't necessarily work when you call it a trilogy, but fuck it. I give him credit. You know, I mean, that's what he wanted to do. I mean, he made a fucking insane, crazy murdering maniac and kills. So,
I love the ending. I like where she calls her daughter. Her daughter has obviously been murdered by that point. Michael answers the phone. Obviously, Michael, being a human, is hilarious. Answers the phone, and he's doing the breathing. That wasn't in the theatrical. That's only on the Blu-ray releases and stuff like that. I want it. Part of the reason why I don't like ends. That ending where he's looking out the window, I'm still just envisioning him looking out the window. I want to see what happens at the end of that story.
That's fine. Hey, that's totally respectable. I gotta say, I love the queer couple that lives in his house and all their they also incredible. I just want to
So, fun factoid. I wasn't trying to get too much into the behind the scenes about all of these films and just judging them on surface level, but I did find an interesting factoid about the character of Little John in this film.
Okay.
To my knowledge, I haven't looked up this actor's entire discography.
Filmography.
I haven't looked up everything that he's done. But to my knowledge, this is the only actor that has been killed by Michael Myers and Mike Myers.
Oh my god.
Because Mike Myers kills this man in Austin Powers.
Jesus Christ.
He's the guy that gets run over by the steamroller that's like a mile away, and instead of getting out of the way, he just screams no repeatedly until it runs him over.
Do you think David Gordon Green did that on purpose? I could see him or Danny McBride being like, hire this fucking dude, yeah.
I hope so. That was probably his audition. He's like, hey man, I'll be the first actor that was killed by Michael Myers and Mike Myers.
You know the dude from, I think it's the dude from Halloween 2007, the one that is like about to bang Annie on the couch or whatever. Pretty sure that's nipple placement guy from fucking Friday the 13th. Yeah, pretty. So there's some funny franchise things when you look at it. There's one character that's actually been killed in a Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and Friday the 13th.
That's
I forgot. I have to look it up. But can you imagine being in all that? Yeah, it's insane. But anyways, anything else to say about kills?
Not a whole lot. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's amazing. Obviously, it's not going to go over my top 2 because they're 2 of my favorite films ever. But as far as modern stuff, obviously in the new franchise, obviously I like it more than Thorn Trilogy, stuff like that. I love it. I don't know what else to say, but...
Your opinions on it, I can see why, and I'm not going to say it would change my ranking, but I can appreciate why you like that film a lot, and I can see why, and the things that you said, I'm like, oh, that's another viewpoint that I haven't.
And I can admit the mob stuff is stupid. I can admit it's stupid, but it's funny. And I mean, in their defense, they don't know what the fuck Michael looks like. He's wearing a mask the whole time.
The thing is, that's why we did a re-ranking, because once in a while you can watch something and then watch something a year or 2 later and be like, it's just not, it just doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
You said it, we both said it, like 2018 upon initial watch, like, oh, fuck yes, it was amazing. And then the more you watch it, you start to see the cracks. You start to think, this part kind of sucks, or this or that, or it doesn't work. But, hey, I respect it. But we've made it to our top 2. Hand me your nice little Mickey Mouse glass there. We'll pour one last
drink
thing together. We'll have a pumpkin spice latte ale from Masthead here in Cleveland.
Behind the scenes, this is like my 5th beer now, because some of them we didn't announce on the show, but we kept drinking.
That's all right. Again, I think we've done all right, considering I don't really drink anymore either, so... Made it to our top 2. My number 2 It's Halloween 3: Season of the Witch.
Thank God.
Oh yeah, you. I love this film. I mean, I've loved it since I was a kid. It's not one of those fucking things where everyone was like, "Oh, I hate it," and then the past 20 years, people have like re-examined it. I mean,
I feel like in the past 10 years, well, in 20 years, people have re-examined it, and they've been like, okay, this actually hits. In the past 10 years, which I don't want to say I fall into this camp because I judge it on face value and I rewatched it, there's a lot of people that, not you, but there's a lot of people that hype it up or like speak more highly of it than it is for the sake of it being different.
fair. Personally, always as a kid, I started with science fiction first and then went into horror, which is probably why Alien and Aliens were so big for me, because it was like that nice little bridge that I stepped over and fell in love with horror. As far as it being different, I love the weirdness. I love just everything about this, the imagery. I'm a huge Tom Atkins mark, and my love grows year after year. I think he is fucking hilarious in this. I just showed Shelby this a couple weeks ago for the first time, and she was laughing her ass off at Tom Atkins constantly, just his little one-liners and the things he's like, yeah, before we figure this out, let's have a drink real quick. It's the little things he does, just his little quips and stuff. And she's watched, thankfully, Night of the Creeps, which is another one of my favorite films of all time. She understands. I think he's like peak between those two films. I think he's hilarious. I think he fits the role he's in perfectly. I don't think there's a lot of other films like this as far as the way, like the story. It's just such a strange story when you put it on paper.
Is, yeah.
I think all the kills in this, for the most part, are iconic. When I was a kid watching it, I remember like seeing, one of the, robots or puppets or animatronics or whatever you want to call the suited men, watching him just go out, solemn face, pour gasoline on himself and blow the car up. I mean, there's something about that as a kid. Like, I immediately was like, oh, I'm hooked. And regardless that Carpenter didn't shoot this film, this feels like very Carpenter-esque, like the way it's shot, some of the things that he enjoys. I don't know. It kind of just feels like the film that he didn't make that was made, I find it fascinating that they wanted to make each sequel about a different story on Halloween. I think that's amazing. Unfortunately, if this would have been made, let's say Halloween and Halloween 2 would have been made in like the early 70s into, mid 70s, we probably would have gotten 2 or 3 Halloweens that would have been some sort of weird, just Halloween story. The 80s was all about franchising. It was all about continuity of sequels and stuff like this, especially as the counterpart, Friday the 13th, at this point was going into its, third or fourth sequel, and it was all about Jason, regardless of what he looked like throughout the sequels. So obviously it made sense for them to change gears, even though it took them years later to do Halloween 4. I love any kind of classic, iconic Halloween imagery. So obviously the 3 masks, the skull, the witch, the jack-o'-lantern. It's just...
I'll never get over when we did horror trivia, and we wrote... The question was, like, write down the masks, and we wrote witch, skeleton, pumpkin. And they didn't give us the point because they were looking for jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
I will never get over that.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. They've been, I think, a little bit more... Wait, which trivia was that?
That was at Side Quest.
Oh, okay. Oh, I told you, Side Quest was hard, man. I have stories on other podcasts. Man, they were hard. Rest in peace, though. I fucking love that place. I miss that place. But just everything for me... I watched it again. I'm like, my love just grows every year. It's so strange. For me, it came out at the perfect time because I love early 80s until about 83, because post 83, a lot of stuff started getting like really silly and self-aware and stuff where they didn't even try to make horror really scary anymore. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it would become a creature feature, which was entertaining, or it would be a horror comedy, regardless if the comedy hit. So I like that this was still like kind of menacing in a weird way. I love how outlandish like the story is, where it's some fucking part of the fucking ruins that does this and that, and the fucking just everything about it. I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say, really, honestly, off the top of my head. I didn't take super detailed notes in this because I was Shelby's first watch with this, so we watched it together.
Yeah.
This is her favorite of the Halloween films she's seen.
Okay.
So, I mean, hey, I mean, it's, again, like you said.
I'll say this. I watched this with my wife when we rewatched it. This was one of the worst ones that she watched.
Oh, hey.
To everyone, like, it's different. I mean, for me, like, I like the film. It's not going to rank super highly for me comparing it to other Halloween films, which originally is why I didn't have it in the list the first time.
I understand.
Because, like, for me, like, I love the franchise so much. Like, this one, when you pair it against some of the other ones, I'm going to like some of the other ones better. And then when it comes to even, like, John Carpenter-esque films of this time, like, I'd rather be watching The Thing than this and stuff like that. So, like, for me, it's harder to place it higher.
One of my favorite films of all time. It's hard to put it up against that. I want to say one thing. I do love how bleak the ending is.
Oh,
I think that's... I mean, like, the fact that...
I mean, that's a callback to the 50s thing where they're like, keep watching the skies, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, the phone call... Like, the ending of this is iconic, too.
I just think there's so much to like. I think, obviously, we're watching part of the ambiance in the background as I talk about it. I will say... How do you want to put it? The test trial of the masks with the family, the number one selling mask family, you know, I think they're from San Francisco, they say, or some bullshit. And then the kid just grabbing onto the mask, and it's just literally like destroying his like head, I guess, just caving it in, and all sorts of insects and bugs and everything horrifying comes out. It's just, for me, one of the most iconic kills of all time. I know it's more of a cult film thing compared to like a mainstream thing, but for me, it's something I can't ever unsee. I don't know. It just hits all the beats for me, and I was always a fan since I was a kid watching on AMC. But it's just grown more and more over the years, and you know, watching all these so close together, I was just like, man, I'm being honest. I would rather watch Halloween 3 than Halloween 1. It's kind of like a weird revelation. Like, I actually like moved it up in my top 100 films and stuff. And it's true. I don't know if it's because I don't know. It's just what my sensibilities are the older I get. So I don't have much more to say about it. It's my number 2 film.
All right. It's time to talk about Halloween 2 for both of us, because that's the last one that you have. It's my number 2.
It's my number 1.
Well, I mean, my number 2, your number... Whatever I said.
Yeah, yes.
It's the last one on Miles' list. It's the second to last on mine.
It's fitting because you can talk about Halloween. It is your podcast and to end it, so...
Halloween 2, I mean... I've watched it so many fucking times. Like... It's the perfect double feature. Halloween and Halloween 2. Takes place immediately after the first film. I love the pumpkin skull at the beginning. I love everything. Like,
just be like,
this is my number 2, guys. And I'm just like, I'm obsessed with everything about this movie.
Well, Buddy maybe composes his thoughts a little bit more. I will talk about it. For me, this and Dawn of the Dead are the perfect fucking sequels. They take everything, and Dawn of the Dead is my favorite film of all time. They take everything about the first film for myself and amplify it to a level that it just surpasses the original film. And that is very, very, very hard to do, in my opinion, of, 30 odd years of watching cinema and trying to understand it and all this. The storytelling is ramped up in every way. I think one of the most ingenious things that has ever been done with any kind of franchising, this film takes place moments after the original. And to my knowledge, has that ever been done before?
I don't know. I mean, off the top, I'm sure it has. I mean, you've seen the Dune movies. So does it pick up like right there? I mean, like, I guess, it's been done. I don't know if it's ever been done as flawlessly as this. And prior to this,
yes, and in a way where it affected the film so much, or made it seem, and the fact that this film was shot 2.5 years after the original, and it feels, like you said, so fucking seamless and perfect. And it's not even the same fucking director. I mean, most of the same crew, but still, it's mind-boggling to me. And
it wasn't planned.
Yes.
Like, that's another thing.
Yes.
Like, this was made because the sequel boom was starting.
Yes.
Like, Friday the 13th was already out, and they're like, shit, we gotta make a new Halloween. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis's wig in this is not great, but that's what they had to do.
81, as far as slashers, for me, the golden year. You had the four, what I would call the four horsemen of slashers. Halloween 2, Friday the 13th Part 2, The Burning, and My Bloody Valentine. Fucking peak.
That'd be a hell of a quadruple feature.
81, I think, is one of my favorite years as far as cinema in general. There are so many fucking masterpieces, but that is another podcast for another day. I still recommend, though, if you want to know what a slasher is, watch those four fucking films. Can you think of 4 better suggestions if you want to watch a slasher film?
I mean, the original Halloween 78 is my favorite film of all time. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Where the storytelling is ramped up.
Yes.
Like, part of... And I guess we can talk a little bit about the original in this, too, because we are at the end of the list. I like the simplicity of the original a little bit better. Like, there isn't a need to explain everything. This is one where it becomes a franchise. The first film stands on its own. You can watch just that and be totally satisfied. The second film is where you have solidified yourself as a horror franchise. This is where you're bringing in the sibling element. This is where you're bringing in a lot more of the... I don't know what I want to say, but like a lot of the beats and the story stuff that not only would follow within the Halloween franchise, but horror franchises, slasher franchises in general.
Became a good template for the whole...
You're getting it from Halloween 2.
For me, it's just I like the setting more than the first one. I think I really like the hospital setting. I like the vulnerability of Laurie. I like the beginning where Michael is kind of... I like that it just doesn't start, Michael's gone, and then he shows up at the hospital. I like that he has a journey to the hospital.
Right.
I think that's ingenious. I don't think I don't want to say any, but I don't think most films nowadays, if they were doing it, would show that. Unless, like we're talking about the David Gordon Green trilogy, like... Unless they're like, oh, well, Halloween 2 did it, we should... You know what I mean? Like, there is a template. If it was like a new franchise, they're not going to go to that length to do that. I think the kills, if I'm being honest, the kills are more iconic. They're more individualized for me. And I think, obviously, I like the finale more. Rarely do I think sequels for me are better, but... There are a few instances, and for me, because I'm going to let you go and talk about the original after this, but Halloween 2 just hits everything for me. For me, it's the perfect amount of ruthlessness to Michael Myers. He's terrifying. There's so many good scenes of him in the shadows stalking. There's a lot. He seems intelligent in the film. It's just for me, it's the perfect epitome of what Michael Myers is a character to me, is what Halloween 2 is. But
if I were to do any critiques of Halloween 2, which I have
fine.
very few, Laurie Strode is a sharpshooter, man. Who taught her how to shoot a gun like that? 2 perfect shots in the eyes on the first try. Come on, bro.
Hey, it's some good imagery, though. Come on, that's some iconic,
it's iconic imagery. A lot of people hate on the ending of Halloween 2 on the internet for some reason, because they think Michael slashing the knife where he doesn't see anybody is the stupidest thing ever. I mean, at that point, what else is he gonna do? I mean, we've never seen him be necessarily quick. Like, it's not like he's gonna pounce on someone. Like, in the first film, he's very much the slow stalk and slash. That's what we're used to. He's not gonna fucking turn into an animal instantly. So, I'm saying that to all the haters out there that think that scene sucks. Because
seems pretty dumb.
I don't know what else he would really do. Because he knows that everything else in the room is gonna fucking explode. He's not just gonna start pouncing on everything.
It seemed pretty dumb. But anyways.
Halloween 1978.
Take the floor.
It's the perfect film. It's the perfect slasher film. Again, less is more. Many films have replicated it, but none have been able to come anywhere close to just sort of the lightning in the bottle that they got with this one. I mean, like, everything clicks. They weren't even really necessarily trying to make a classic, but it just shows, like, how skilled John Carpenter is at his craft. Like, they were like, all right, fuck it. We're just going to make a film. We're going to call it The Babysitter Murders. Give me fucking $300,000 and we'll see what we do. He fucking made gold. Like, I mean, had they not called it Halloween, had they called it The Babysitter Murders, probably wouldn't have gotten the following that it did, the franchise. Obviously, it's not the first Halloween horror film-ish, not the first holiday slasher-ish. They had Black Christmas a couple years prior.
Goat.
Very vulgar. Very vulgar. I forgot about that until I rewatched it a couple years ago. I was just like, shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck you can say about 1978 that hasn't been said before.
I didn't have much to say. That's why. I mean, it's...
I love the character of Laurie. I like the other characters as well. Tommy Doyle is in it. Obviously, you see him later. You see Lonnie in it as well. So I like how in some of these other films they're actually trying to tie it into the lore of the first film, as I said. We take the music for granted. We take the pacing of this for granted. All of this not necessarily started with Halloween, as I said, but this is the template, the gold standard of how to make a horror film, a slasher film specifically. I know you love Halloween 2 more, but like, if you were to think of... So, I'll ask you this. Do you like Halloween 2 more, or do you like Friday the 13th Part 2 more?
Friday the 13th Part 2 more. But Friday the 13th Part 2, as we've talked about on another podcast, you all should listen if you haven't listened to the Friday ranking. I just watched that in theaters a little over a week ago again, and I actually bumped my ranking up even a bit higher because there's something about that film that just hits with me on another fucking level. So I'm not really sure, continue what you want me to say about it, but I fucking love Friday the 13th Part 2.
Halloween is just the perfect slasher. Like,
I can't disagree.
It's the perfect slasher that doesn't have... I guess what I'll say in regards to Part 2, Friday the 13th, without a lot of the slasher tropes that you see. There's never a scene in this film where people are talking about the legend of Michael Myers or telling a story. It just happens.
Yeah.
A lot of these other films, like in these sequels too, it's telling the story of something that had happened years prior. And here we see it, and then it continues that story naturally. There's no need for the campfire conversation. There's no need for all of this extra stuff. This is the bare bones. This is a slasher film. It does it perfectly. It executes everything perfectly. Music is flawless. Pacing is flawless. It's the perfect runtime. It's not too long. We were talking about Terrifier 2 earlier in this. Like, holy fuck, that film would have been a 5-star if it was a half hour shorter.
I did give it 4.5, but that's 4.5 out of a modern rating. I'll just put that. But anyways,
I have nothing else about 78 to say that I haven't said. I mean, at this point, we've been going about 3 hours, maybe longer. What do you possibly say about this franchise anymore? I mean, we've talked about every film in depth.
The original 3 are 3 of my favorite films of all time. I don't think that there's going to be anything that's really going to knock those out of that.
And this is coming from 2 guys that were growing up in the 90s. Like we said earlier, like, I can't imagine watching this when it was new. Like, as a kid or a teenager, like...
Well, I mean, like I said before, I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's on topic. Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, The Exorcist. For me, we've been doing these podcasts for years together now, and those films just absolutely changed my life at a young age. It's weird to say that, but just the fact that, like, those films made me obsessed with horror, and why I'll probably be a horror head till I fucking die. Why I'll probably do another fucking God knows how many of these fucking podcasts with you, and regardless of what the content is, because I got sucked into these otherworldly fucking characters, these personifications of evil, and they won't let me go.
Yeah.
What do you got? Huh?
I mean, I think we've covered everything. I think there's nothing that I can say about Halloween that I haven't already said. So we'll do a final cheers.
We're going to do a final cheers. Thank you, buddy, so much for having me on. I love it. I love you. I love this podcast. And I love that we have different fucking opinions about this franchise, because that's what makes life beautiful. Thank you.
But here's on to the next one. What should we review next? What franchise are we going to tackle?
I will say my piece on this final note, one that I'm trying to get...
The question was for the viewers, but I would love to hear what you have to say, too.
Okay, you give one, I give one. Then we'll be done.
I'm not the viewer. I was telling the viewers.
All right, well, should I shut the fuck up and just let it go then?
No, because I need to know. Because you tell me and we'll do it. I mean, we got to keep doing these.
Well, maybe we'll see each other in hell next year. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I suggested to you, bro.
I think we're gonna have to solve a couple puzzle boxes next year.
Definitely, it's gonna be quite puzzling putting this list together. I'll tell you that right now.
I think next year too we should watch a lot of these together, so we get that initial reaction.
Yes.
So
we're gonna try not to chatter too much about this, but I think you might know what we're hinting at.
Buddy's suffering might be legendary in hell next year. So I'm ready to take that step through. But I think for this podcast, it's Midnight Miles. We're cheersing again. Thank you again, Buddy, for everything you do and for doing this. And we'll see you next time.
Well, that is about it for this time, guys. I hope you enjoyed our Halloween series ranked, not just this portion of it, but the 2 parts preceding it. I hope you enjoyed all 3 segments of the show. What are your favorite Halloween films? Let us know. Get in touch with us. Make sure you're subscribing to the show wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you guys are leaving ratings, reviews, spreading the good word about the show, telling everybody that you know about the greatest horror podcast of all time, Buddy's House of Horror Podcast. We will see you back here tomorrow for another episode. As always, it is going to be another episode of Hidden Horror, so I hope you guys enjoy that series as well. And I will let you guys go about your day because you just listened to an entire podcast. Maybe you listened to all 3 podcasts in one day. Maybe you were waiting for all of them to come out before you checked it out. So I'm just going to wrap this thing up, sail off into the sunset. So I hope you guys all take care and stay spooky.